5 o'clock. All right.
If I'd known what I know now.
All right.
Oh, goodness.
We're ready to start. I call this meeting to order of the workshop for March 25th, 2024. Good to see everybody here today. There's no one registered to speak during the public comment period, so moving on to the call meeting. We are opening a bid for the street department on a street truck. Jackie Jones submitted the only bid. We will open it now and see what we've got. Is this a new truck y'all are buying? The two that came up before? Okay. All right, this is from Jackie Jones. Scott Sledge has presented this. We have a F-350 4x4 style side pickup 142. Manufacturer's retail price $48,815. It has locking axle, it has a 250 amp alternator, it has all the bells and whistles that David you need for the street department. Total quote $54,305. Vehicle would include a 8x6 flatbed toolbox on the passenger side, 3-year 36,000 mile base warranty, or a 5-year 60,000 mile warranty, powertrain warranty. Joanne, do you want to look this over? You and David take a minute and discuss it.
We're okay. We would like to accept.
Is your mic on?
I think so. Sorry. We would like to accept if that's okay. Make a motion to accept.
Okay. I still didn't. You're going to have to talk louder.
I'm sorry.
She made a motion to accept.
Made a motion to
Yes.
accept it. Okay.
Yeah. I think is there
And
another
Lamar
truck
second.
in there?
All right.
Or is there just one?
That's a good question.
All right.
There should be
Any
two.
discussion on this?
I think there was two trucks total.
Yeah,
You
there's
gonna do them separately or?
Our bid spec asked for 2 trucks.
Only one that I
I
saw.
only see the one. But
You only
read
see the one?
over it and maybe there's 2 on there. I'm only seeing the one.
Did he give you anything on the second truck?
He was supposed to turn the bids in.
Well, I will get with Scott to see about the second truck, but we still would like to purchase this truck as well. The second truck would complete the trucks that we need to purchase for the streets department. So I'd still like to go forward with the motion on this truck.
Did he give you a price on the second truck?
He did. Do you have that paperwork or should I have it somewhere?
I think I've got it at the shop.
Sorry. Yes.
It's a different truck though, right? It's not
Yes,
the
it
same
is.
truck.
Yes, it's a different truck. If I understand it right, and I apologize, I thought this information would be in the packet. I believe this truck is already there. The other truck they have to make. So that truck is a little more expensive. The 2 trucks together is $120,000. And so I think this is the truck that's already on the lot.
You wanna make a motion, go ahead and do it at the same time?
I think both trucks together are still stay within the budget that was
They do.
amendment that was made. Without the bid, we can't do them both together.
I don't think so. I think I have to wait. So we'll just go with the one.
Okay, so we're bidding on this truck here. We got a motion
Yes,
and a
please.
second. Any more discussion?
Anybody want to look at the bid sheet?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion does carry. Okay.
Thank
And then
you.
when the next one comes up with the bid, we bid on. Okay.
Could that be added to the agenda for next Monday or if the bid
Yeah,
comes in?
because technically we advertised for it.
Yeah.
So if he wanted to submit a bid and could do it before next Monday in a sealed envelope, we could accept it.
We'll figure out what the error is and what happened and we'll get back with you.
In workshop discussion, we have another draft of the employee's handbook. First, John was asked by the board to speak with MTask on their opinion on the drug policy, which several of us have had concerns on. And John, can you review the memo you issued in response to that request?
First of all, I think y'all probably asked for a bale of hay, and I brought you a 2-ton load. But bottom line is that the Constitution prohibits us from doing pre-employment and probably random also on employees without any cause, except for safety sensitive positions. And I did the research on what you might call public interest or public integrity issues, and that doesn't satisfy the courts when it comes to constitutional requirements, and so it's only safety. But they do, that safety requirement goes a long way. For instance, anybody that works with children, that's a safety sensitive position. And pretty much anybody that's in contact with the public doing work like operating equipment, heavy equipment, has to be heavy equipment. There's a lot of safety issues with other things. So we basically can't do other than the schools, which we don't do, and the police department, fire department. We can't do pre-employment drug testing for the rest of the employees.
So you're saying heavy equipment does not include the lawnmowers and the tractors that the streets department uses and things like that? That's not considered a safety sensitive?
It does not include trucks. It doesn't include vehicles on the highways. Anything short of a tractor trailer, which we don't operate. So we don't have to worry about those much, because those drivers have our drivers mostly have CDLs, and so they're required to do drug testing through TDOT. And of course, so we don't have to be concerned too much about that.
So if I'm hearing correctly, even though we have employees out on the road driving vehicles, that does not apply.
Right, does not apply.
Does not apply.
Does not apply.
In MTAS's draft of the drug policy, the way Betsy and mine's conversation was, she did interpret that all Parks and Rec employees and street department employees were considered safety sensitive. So I don't know if that's specifically written out in the drug policy that MTAS proposed, because they did draft this drug policy. Basically, the only people that were exempt were Savannah, the office staff, and the IT people in the library. We would not consider them safety sensitive.
But at the same time, you're saying that basically the city has been doing something unconstitutional for years, because we have drug tested all of these people.
Yeah.
And so we can continue to side on that side of caution.
Yeah.
If we wanted to.
You can if you want to.
What is your recommendation as city attorney?
Well, my recommendation, the way I read the law, everything that MTAS gave me, which included a couple of Attorney General's opinions, as well as all the federal cases I could find on the subject, led me to believe that MTAS is actually saying we can do a lot more than we constitutionally can, because it doesn't cover all Parks and Rec, and it doesn't cover all street department.
So
It's
would
an
you
indi-
recommend
now-
we adopt the drug policy as MTAS drafted it, or?
Well, MTAS didn't say that in the policy, that all of the Parks and Rec and all of the street department people, they didn't say that. I recommend that you pass. Now I added a couple of things.
Which
with
this draft has those additions in it.
Right, it's things like school administrators as well as teachers and those kinds of things. But I would recommend that it pass the way it is now with those additions and without saying that everybody. And it's not part of the policy, but I recommend that whenever anybody is hired for a position, and it's not the employee, it's the position, if it has to be a safety sensitive position, that consideration be given every single time to whether or not it is a safety sensitive position. And if you think it is, make that decision on each time with a reason, and that'll probably pass muster.
So what
Define safety sensitive.
There, I don't have what I wrote
you
in
want
front
your
of me.
memo?
There is, and I think you will think that as I do, that it covers a lot more than just what the courts have said. But an employee in a safety sensitive position is an employee whose position involves a risk of injury to others as a result of even a momentary lapse of attention, and that's it. And they talk about how school teachers, for instance, are in a position that you have to be giving your full attention to those kids and every one of them every day, all the time, because just in an instant, one of them can be seriously injured.
I feel the same way about driving.
Same
though.
way with driving, same way with
don't-
a lot of things. That's
yeah.
why I'm saying I think it shouldn't be the policy that these positions are always safety sensitive, but if you make a decision, you know, and have a reason for each time you employ somebody, because the only risk, I shouldn't say the only risk, and it's not really a risk, but the result could be that they find an attorney that's willing to file a complaint that says that we violated their constitutional right to privacy by requiring that they have this test. And we would lose. if and we might not lose. I'm just saying that's that. The risk on the other side is some serious injury to another employee, or the employee that's doing the job, or to a member of the public. And as I just told Sam earlier, I didn't get elected to make those decisions and to weigh those risks, but I think most people with common sense would find that the risk to an injury or death to a member of the public in most every instance would outweigh the risk that there might be a lawsuit.
Can Parks and Rec be considered safety sensitive because they have a responsibility for the safety of children?
It's not departments. They're pretty clear in all their decisions. It's the position. You know, so I
So the
would say
playground
that
inspector.
somebody, for instance, at the swimming pool, where it's, and I haven't been to the swimming pool, where I'm assuming it's almost all minors, and where there's likely to be a lot of horseplay, and there's drowning risk. And even if you're not a lifeguard, if something comes up, then somebody that's manning the snack bar has to be ready to come to the aid of the lifeguard, or make the phone call for the ambulance, or whatever. All of those, that's a place where probably they would be, but I don't think you could say that about all parks and recs. You can't just, I don't think you can, except for the police and fire department, you probably can't do a whole department at a time.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm saying this exactly right, because this hasn't been put in minutes. City attorney's recommendation is to adopt the MTAS drug and alcohol policy as drafted,
Yeah.
and then determine whether employees are safety sensitive on a case-by-case basis.
Position, whether the position is a safety sensitive on a case-by-case basis.
Has our liability insurance carrier weighed in on this in any way?
So they
That's-
actually drafted with MTS this model. They have
So
both
we're not
agreed.
gonna have an incident where their defense is, we hired a dope addict and we knew it when we hired him.
MTS says this is both PE Partners and MTS's recommended policy.
Okay. If they
But they also have not threatened to withdraw our coverage if
They-
we don't go with the adopted policy. So
signed off on that anywhere?
And
I don't have it in writing.
there are, I'm told by MTS, cities and towns across the state that are going each way on this. There's not consistent.
John,
With
is
the
the,
guy, go ahead.
is the school teachers covered under this too? Our city school teachers?
School teachers, well, they're not covered under
Or
this
does
policy.
this apply to
but
them
it applies to school teachers in that they can be pre-employment tested. School teacher is a safety sensitive
Right.
position.
But that policy is governed by the school board under their own policy. They don't fall under our handbook. The teachers don't. They have their own separate handbook.
Well, in reading it, I saw where teacher was mentioned 2 or 3 times.
Well, that's because the leading case, or one of the 3 leading cases in all of this, was Knox County School, against the Knox County School Board. Right here in U.S. District Court in Knoxville. And went up to the 6th Circuit, and that's where a big part of this comes from.
And they're saying it's because it's an invasion of their privacy.
That's what the potential employee who doesn't get the job says it is.
And then did I read in there correctly that it said because of the urinalysis testing?
Well, it's urinalysis testing in all of the cases that I read.
Pluck a hair follicle.
No,
I mean,
and it wasn't, they weren't pulling out a hair, and it's interesting, I didn't put anything in there, but some of the cases, the judges talk about what a minimal invasion it is. You know, they don't have somebody standing there watching. It has to be, the urine's collected in a private place and all of this, but they also liken it to taking a blood draw for a drug test, which I didn't find that anybody required. But of course, I think we can all see why the government's sticking a needle in your arm and drawing your blood is much, much more invasive than just a urinalysis. But if the cases didn't say that urinalysis was enough to violate the privacy rights, then I wouldn't have thought so.
Does this have any bearing on random drug testing?
Yes, it's
For city employees?
It's the same.
It's the same?
Yeah, we're pretty much limited to testing on suspicion
And post-accident.
and well, yeah, I think post-accident is a subcategory of
In other words,
of
you
suspicion.
just can't take a list of names and put them in a hat and draw them out anymore and say, John gets
Right.
a blood test, Jessica
Right.
gets a blood test today, and that's
Right.
no longer?
Can't do that.
We can,
Now we
we had a pool of
we
safety
can't.
sensitive only names. We can still randomly pull those.
Such as,
Oh, yeah.
Like we could say police, fire, CDL holders, put all them in a hat and only draw from that group. Then we could do random from that group.
okay.
The position point that you were making, for instance, I noticed the library had advertised to hire a part-time, I think it's youth or children's? Children and youth. So that would be one we might
That's
need
one,
to say their whole purpose is to be in contact with
Right.
children. You will need to be tested before you're hired.
right. Whereas a volunteer or a paid employee who only sits behind the desk.
Circulation.
Circulation, exactly. And
What about the director?
and that would depend on how their employees are trained and how they're cycled through. It
Yeah.
might be that everybody has to work with children
Right.
sometimes, and so.
Okay.
Boy,
So bottom line is I recommend that this be adopted as it's written.
Anybody have any problem with that? Do we need to vote on that?
So we're not voting on this tonight. Tonight's just for discussion. It is on the agenda for April 1st. We don't have to vote on it April 1st. We are gonna go ahead and have the public hearing on it April 1st, just because I've already advertised that. But we can wait till October to vote this in, if you all wanna keep talking about this. I do ask that we make a very clear distinction on what we're gonna define as safety sensitive, so that I don't have to call 5 commissioners every time we hire someone to figure out if we need a drug test or not. Like, I want y'all to give me enough guidance that we can put it into practice.
Are we overstepping any boundaries by writing that script that all of these positions are safety sensitive? Because what I heard,
No, we're not overstepping in any way. That's not to say we couldn't be wrong.
because I just, like I say, I'm saying it out loud based on my interpretation of what I heard, is it's not in there, but we have the option to selectively drug test based on that particular position.
Well, those positions that are in there are all positions that federal appellate courts have said those positions are safety sensitive.
Okay.
The ones that are in there.
Okay.
And that by itself should be enough to insulate us from any liability for those positions.
So the gray areas are office staff, maybe Parks and Rec is a gray area, except for lifeguards.
Yeah, well, and I'm saying, yeah, lifeguards. And
It feels
probably
kinda
anybody
silly
that
to test
probably
a
anybody.
part-time seasonal lifeguard for drug testing and not test the guy that's gonna be working for us all year long. But I know that's not the standard either, so.
Is that something, John, that needs to be when the job is advertised, as to whether or not it's subject to pre-employment drug testing?
Yes.
It needs to be part of,
Yes,
when
it
we're
should be,
saying,
yes.
this job's open and we consider it,
Safety sensitive, and you will be expected to submit to a pre-employment drug test.
If
Yeah.
you've got Parks and Rec and a guy on
Because
the lawnmower and a lapse of judgment for a split second, he picks up a rock and slings it and hits a kid in the back of the head, that's safety sensitive if you ask me.
Well, I think
You
the,
just about make any job safety sensitive.
That's
know.
exactly right. Any
could
job.
that way,
I
but I
mean-
think the distinctions the courts are making, that's not, that whether you hit a rock with a mowing machine is not really a lapse of inattention. It's not inattention. You
But
don't.
you're checking a text message and you veer off your grass, and,
If you're not taking,
I mean,
well,
I'm just saying.
Seems like there's a lot of gray areas in this policy.
there's a lot of gray areas in what the courts have said. You know, they don't make the hard decisions. They just make some general ground rules and guidance.
Give us an just something that if somebody comes in to get hired, a scenario of what would cause him to file a loose lawsuit against us by getting him to take a drug test, or
well,
her.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think you have to look any further than the lady in the back of the room. You know, that guy's been harassing her out the library. He would not hesitate a moment if he could find a lawyer to go file a suit and say his privacy rights were invaded because we said you need to go take a drug test before we hire you.
And apply for
I
a job.
guarantee. I mean, they're out there.
And apply for
Don't
a
doubt
job.
that at all.
Yeah, and he would apply for a job knowing that it's a
Yes.
drug test, just solely for the purpose
He
of
would
filing the lawsuit.
apply for it and have you tell him no because he refused to take the test, and
Yeah.
off we go.
Do you think there's a strong enough, as city attorney, do you think there's a strong enough argument for or against whether a Parks and Rec employee that's not a lifeguard, that's mowing, weed eating, picking up litter and cleaning the bathrooms, that kind of Parks and Rec employee? Do you think there's a strong enough argument either way for whether that's a safety sensitive position? If, assuming they all are required to have driver's license by their job description and drive city vehicles and equipment?
The driving doesn't make any difference. That's been specifically ruled on by the courts. And as far as the rest of it goes, I would say they would every opinion I've said would consistently hold that is not safety sensitive. and I want to make an offer that I made before to all of you generally and to any of you in particular. I've got all these, you know, downloaded from the internet and saved on my computer and all of that. And if you're interested in looking at any of these ridiculous decisions, so that you may understand how they come to these conclusions, I've got them available. Just drop by anytime to talk about it, or to take one of those home. So when you have insomnia, you know, it'll bore you to sleep.
So you admit that it's kind of ridiculous?
Some of them are. They really are. And I really don't understand the fact that there's never been one for public integrity. Yeah. And the leading case on that is an accountant of all people, who's sitting there, you know, able to cook the books and steal money and whatever else, but they said, no, that's not safety sensitive.
What about a lawyer?
Lawyers should never be drug tested ever for any reason, anywhere, anytime.
Okay, are there any more discussion on this? Jess, you got everything in line?
So that's the drug policy. The one question I had that was just in general at the employee handbook was the question of hours. Jim has brought this up. The library's situation and whether and how we're going to integrate them means we need to kind of make a decision about this. Again, it doesn't have to be voted on in April. We may want to, you know,
Bring it back up.
do it again later. Yeah.
Okay.
But the hours question is, right now the handbook says a 40-hour schedule a week is what gives you benefits. So the MTAS draft that's in your packet, and I have an extra copy floating around here somewhere if anybody would rather have a paper copy. I think it's right down there. That says for health insurance, we've changed it to 30 hours. For all other benefits, we're keeping it at 40 hours. So you need to think about if that's the way you want to do it, or if we're going to move that hours line lower so that we can give library more than just health insurance. By federal law, we have got to give people working more than 30 hours a week, year-round, not just seasonally, health insurance. But TCRS allows us to make our decision about retirement on our own. So it's up to you all to decide that. There's not a federal ruling on that. So if you'll look back through that, if anybody wants to discuss it right now, we can, but that's something we will have to come to a consensus on before we pass it.
But isn't that particular decision with the library, that's a whole budgetary conversation?
Very much a budgetary conversation.
That obviously we need to have and need to resolve.
Which I plan on having you the draft of the budget April 1st. So whatever that's on.
Monday. This coming Monday.
We'll bump that in.
We'll have a draft.
Let me, if I might, one other place, and this sort of came up during that last discussion. In looking through our personnel handbook, it goes through all of the people it doesn't apply to, and then it's got a little paragraph that says that some of our rules apply to all city employees, including exempt employees, such as discrimination, harassment, and any policy that's required by state or federal law. I think, and John, you can tell me what you think. If we're going to have a clause that's that broad, we probably ought to see what sort of policies the school board and utility board have in those areas, because our book says, our book rules. And I'd hate to get in a situation where there's a conflict between what ours says, because we're saying it applies, and what either of theirs say, and it's different, or not the same process, or harder, or easier, or whatever.
You're saying to
could
make
you
them
look-
both correspond with each other?
Yeah, if John maybe could just review their policies and the ones that would apply from our personnel handbook.
I think I've got time in my calendar to do that in about 18 months.
Okay.
Now I don't know what policies, but if you
I don't
mean
know if they even have one.
if you mean a lot, well, I'm almost certain that the utility board has their own ethics. I think they're required to by their state
Yes.
association they belong to,
They are.
and all of that. But I'm just saying, if you'd like for me to undertake a line by line
No,
comparison
just
of
in
all of them,
general.
that'll
If
take a while.
Our harassment and
Oh, yeah,
That's the two it mentions, discrimination, sexual harassment.
right.
Well,
those-
just make sure ours aren't radically different from
Right.
theirs if that issue ever came up.
Right.
Would it be easier to put in there except for utility and school employees, which have their own policy?
Well, here's the thing,
I'm
is
pretty sure,
Well, that's what we had until
Fed-
somebody stuck this paragraph.
federal law is going to, you
Yeah,
know,
it doesn't matter.
Trump everything.
trump everything, all of us. So, if there's a harassment or discrimination under Title VI or any title of the federal code, it's not gonna matter what ours says. And of course, that's part of why that's in there. It applies to all employees, no matter how they're
I think the
characterized.
intent of that was to make sure that harassment applied to you all, and not just the employees, that it also covered
Yeah.
everyone in the city.
We don't want
So
you all
maybe we
being
should just
harassed.
say it
I know,
also
maybe we
includes
should just
elected
put back the
officials
terms about this does
instead of
not apply to,
making it
because
so
I am pretty
broad.
sure they have separate policies, but if it's just on harassment, I could just check and see if they've got.
I just don't want to get in a situation where
Yeah.
that's an issue and our policy's different from their policy and somebody's fighting over which one applies.
Well, and I don't know that we can enforce our policy on top of them anyway,
Well,
so,
you can the way it's written,
yeah.
and they are city employees. They're exempted up in the beginning of it, but their
Mhm.
end
And later on
says
we kinda
unless
lump 'em back in,
it's
yeah.
harassment, discrimination,
Well,
or something state or federal law.
Looking at the outside edges of this, I definitely don't want it to appear that we're saying that utility board employees can violate Title VI and discriminate and harass, you know, because their policy doesn't say they can't, whereas ours, we don't want to rubber stamp anything in that way.
Right.
So I think it's fine the way it is. And if it came up that somebody, an employee or somebody at the utility board said that there's a difference and we don't require, I mean, ours doesn't say, we don't want to be part of that soup. We want to say, no, ours says, and we didn't know about it, and if we had known about it, we would have enforced our own. Of course, the likelihood is that under our own or theirs, if it was different, we'd probably find there was no violation anyway. It'd be pretty rare that they would be different and that it would make a difference in liability.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it'd be procedurally and
It
review
would.
and all that sort of
It-
stuff. Be the biggest difference. That caught my attention. Stop the problem before it becomes one.
Okay, any more discussion on the handbook? Hope not, right now. Jess, you've got everything where you, pretty well know.
We wanna go through it
Okay.
all.
So this will probably be coming back up 2 or 3 more times.
We're gonna keep
I
talking
would
about it for months, y'all.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Gotta get it right.
That's all right.
Yeah.
After we pass it, we'll
And we
change it.
have one in place in the meantime. It's not like,
Right.
you know, we have rules to abide by right this second.
Okay. In the last workshop, we discussed limiting access to the garage as the landfill cost has increased significantly and more garbage keep being brought into the garage. Commissioner Jinks, do you have some information on the gate system?
Okay, so let me know if you can't hear me. We kind of came up with a few different options. I'm not exactly sure if you guys came up with your own options as well as to what you think would be a great idea to fix the problem. So I'll just go through kind of what David and I came up with and then the one that we would like to go with. Obviously, you can just increase the landfill budget. We think about $25,000 increase a year and just kind of keep things as is. We could increase how much sub, we charge sub for the chips and stuff that they bring into us, but sub does a lot for the city that they don't charge us for. So we also don't feel that that would be the best route to go. We could start charging per load and limiting the hours the part with that would be it would also include a lot of manpower and then just kind of like regulating it. We could put it out that no businesses and no construction materials can come in, but that also means that if you're a homeowner and you decided to tear out your bathroom and it's your one load a month that you put at the side of your road, how would we say, okay, we're not taking your drywall, we're not, if it's just their one-time load? And then the people that come to the landfill, how would you really monitor, like, do you legitimately own a business, that kind of thing? And so we would recommend that we shut down the ability for citizens to bring their trash to the city garage and to the dump, both places. So we're actually asking for 2 fence. Well, sorry, I keep saying fence, but it's a gate. 2 gates. And we feel that it would be best suited if every person leaves their trash at the side of the road. That will increase how much is at the side of the road, but that will also help our guys be able to instantly monitor, okay, we picked up a load from this family, and then, okay, we have a new load. Now we're going to let them know, hey, you need to go to City Hall. You need to pay for this load. As soon as this load is paid, we will be back here and we'll pick up this load for you. We're not saying that we won't pick it up. You just need to pay for the extra load. And so we think that if we can just monitor it that way, it would pretty much take care of the problem. We also think it would be smart if at the dump where we put the gate up, there were some cameras. We do understand that this will probably make some people mad, and we can very easily imagine coming to the dump at the morning or to the garage and all of it right in front of the gate. Like, okay, you may be mad and I just decided to dump this here. Now we're going to have to clean up this mess just to get through our own gate. So we would like some cameras just to be able to say, okay, if that did happen, who do we call? We would work with Eddie, obviously, and be like, Eddie, here's the license plate number and that kind of thing. They left this kind of mess. So we feel that that would be the best option. We called 6 different fencing gate places. 2 of them responded. We looked at the information that they sent us. It was basically the same exact information. We actually looked up the gate. It's exactly the same gate, and one was $7,000 cheaper than the other one for basically the same exact gate. So we would recommend that we go with ABC Fence, which...
What is the gate for? I mean, I keep hearing about this gate, but how does this gate work? For what purpose is it designed, and what's it supposed to do?
So we'll put the gates at the beginning of the city garage and even at the road that goes into the dumps so that you can't get into the actual garage. Then the people like Sub and the streets department and other people that use the garage, they would have remote control access, so they'll just click the remote, the gate would open, and you'd actually be able to go down into the garage. So basically this gate would, you just simply would not be able to go any farther than the gate into the city garage or the dump.
In case nobody's there or just JR's there, you can't just pull down in there.
Yes.
Well,
Dump
for
the
example,
trash and
David
leave.
sent me pictures from a Monday morning like 2 weeks ago that over the course of the weekend, someone had gone down into the garage and
Yes.
filled an entire dumpster full of
Yes.
trash that we then have to pay to have them. It's $200 every time they come and empty it, and then we pay the cost for what the weight was that was inside the dumpster. So in the month of January alone, we had $10,000 in costs from the garage from dumping dumpsters. And this has not always been the precedent. Years ago, we only did curbside pickup, and we told everybody to take it out to the convenience center if they had it loaded up somewhere. Well, a few years ago, someone made an adjustment and was telling people, sure, you can just bring it. If you're flipping that house, just bring it here. That saves us from having to pick it up curbside. The issue is now everybody is just bringing it to the garage all the time instead of to the convenience center, which we pay county taxes for. So.
And it's basically the same thing at the dump. Anybody that does tree trimming and that kind of stuff, if you own your own business, you know you just have to go to the dump and you can unload it for free, and you obviously make a larger profit because the city now has to get rid of your waste. We've also had some problems because usually we try to do like a pie plate. The logs that you bring shouldn't really be bigger than this because it's too hard for us to get rid of them. And we have large pieces that are coming in. So we need to monitor that as well. And so again, whether it's the city garage or the dump, a weekend comes through, evening comes through, and it gets hit hard. And so we just want to restrict the access.
So you're saying too that like if somebody here in town is remodeling a bathroom or something like that, they can't bring it here in town, a taxpayer here in town wants to get rid of it, can't take it down to the dump anymore.
Right. So if say I wanted to redo my bathroom, because I obviously live in the city, and so what I would do is I would take everything from the bathroom that I need to, and I would set it at the side of my road, because I get one truckload a month for my taxpayer money. So I put it at the side of the road, and they will come and they'll pick it up and they will take it to the dump. Now say that one load wasn't enough and I'm now doing my kitchen and I bring another load out. That load's not going to get picked up until I come here to City Hall and pay for that load to be picked up.
What's the cost going to be?
I think it's 35 for the second load.
Yeah.
50 for the second load every month. Or they leave it sitting there 3 more days and wait till it turns to April 1st and then they come and pick it up.
$50 won't cover the landfill cost.
And it won't even cover dumpster rental.
I mean,
So
that schedule of fees needs to be looked at.
I'm thinking if we do it that way though, you know, we got a lot of contractors that coming and doing like remodeling jobs like Joanna's talking about, and if she's paying them to do the work and they don't live in the city, then they've got to put it on their trailer where they don't have an address where they can dump the stuff, so they're gonna have to haul it to the landfill.
the gate regulates what comes in and what does not come in. Leaving it at the address regulates one load a month. If you have 2, it's an accounting benefit for the city that we get to charge for it. But the gate is the regulator.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not going to be perfect because like what Jessica said, if they put it out, say 4 days before the end of the month, it might sit there for the 4 days, and we might have to work more with codes and simply say, hey, they put it at the end of the road. They've already done their one for the month, and now it's flying everywhere, you know. And so we'll just hopefully work with codes and with Eddie and whoever else we can to make it as seamless as the best possible outcome, I guess.
What about washers and dryers and this you see? You still pick them up at curbside?
You still get your one load a month.
Mattresses.
However that
Okay.
yes,
All
however
right.
that works.
I think it's fair. I mean, you know, it's a taxpayer.
Meta Branch charges $30 to dump one mattress.
Yeah. Okay, anything else, Joanne? Is that it?
I'm good. Thank you.
So,
We'll put that on
that
there.
was the price on the gate, the $10,621, and that was for one gate.
That's for one gate, and we would ask for 2 gates and then a few cameras for the dump, just to make sure that we can see what's going on.
While we're on this, what is the deal on picking up the bark and the mulch and stuff? Charlie Fry called me today and said that he went up and they give him a load, but said Wednesday they're going to start charging for it. Is
Charlie
that correct?
misread the post. There is no charge. We will give you, if Charlie Fry wants to come pick up 8 million barrels filled with those raw wood chips, we will give them to him all day long.
He said the guy that was up there told him Wednesday they're going to start charging for it.
Wednesday is the day we're going to be there to give it away. So he needs to come on Wednesday between 12 and 3, and they will give him all
Okay,
he
something
Yeah,
about
we just
some
can't
leaves,
man it.
Something about some leaves that he wanted that he said we can't have the leaves because we're going to mix it with the bark and
Make compost.
We
Make
are
compost.
composting.
Making compost.
We are trying to make some compost and try to use some of our resources a little bit differently at the dump. But
so he
we
can't have the
tons
leaves,
of
but he
leaves,
can have the
so-
mulch or chips or whatever.
So,
Okay.
yes.
You know, Charlie. Okay, let me back up with permission here on this other truck. Is that okay with everybody to go ahead and vote on it while we've got the new specs on it? This is from Jackie Jones, Scott Sledge. F-350 4x4 chassis cab DRW169. It lists all of the things it's got. Looks like it's pretty well loaded. It also has a dump bed, snow plow package, dual batteries, on and on. But anyway, total cost includes one dump bed for the total price of $64,393. This is a 2024 model. Have you looked this over?
Yes, we have.
Are you satisfied with it?
Yes, I am.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to purchase the truck.
Have a motion made and second to buy this truck. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion does carry. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a representative, Ms. Altman, from the tree board here to talk to us tonight. Come forward, ma'am, and that mic right there, I think, is open.
Great, thank you. And I just brought some information to the commissioners so you can look over that. It's your little continuing education for this evening. All right, so I'm Jill Alleman. I'm with the City Tree Board. And first off, I want to tell you that the Tree Board sponsors an Arbor Day celebration once a year, every year, with all of our 5th graders in the city schools. And we want to invite all of you all, if you're able to come. It's going to be on May the 7th, Tuesday, at Engelman Park, which is our certified Arboretum. We like to say we bring our children out to a living classroom, and they really love being out there and seeing all the trees. So that's going to be May 7th at around 12:45 is when we'll start, just as soon as the kids get there on their buses from the school. So we'd love to see you all there. And we'll send out more information about that as a reminder as it gets closer. I wanted to talk a little bit about our trees and landscaping chapter of the municipal code of the City of Sweetwater. And I've handed out this information because I know sometimes we tend to think, well, trees are nice, you know, they're pretty, we enjoy trees, but they also serve an economic, they have economic importance to our city. So I just gave you this information to give you a few of the facts about that. So they do such things as reduce the volume and rate of stormwater runoff. If trees are planted in parking lots, especially in big parking lots, and our landscape ordinance does require that businesses plant trees, and it says every 15 parking spaces have to have an island, and that way when it rains, the water will be soaked up by those trees and absorbed, instead of just running off and having to be handled by the city stormwater. So this slows the rate of stormwater hitting the ground, reduces erosion, reduces the risk of flooding, and reduces the amount of stormwater having to be handled by our city water management system. It can also save energy to reduce stormwater runoff, because it takes energy to clean up our drinking water and to provide the drinking water that we have in the city. So it also, if you have more runoff, you have more processing and cleanup to do from the erosion and even the runoff of dirt that happens. So that's going to cost more more infrastructure and more cost to prepare the water for drinking. So we're going to talk about a current exemption in the city ordinance that says right now that M1 and M2 zoned employee parking lots are exempt from tree planting. And, you know, it's been that way since our landscaping ordinance was put into place, which I believe was 2016, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, Mr. Cleveland. But currently, our trees and landscaping regulation does not require that M1 and M2 office employee parking, visitor parking, or general employee parking lots have any trees planted, such as with other types of businesses, which must have tree islands for every 15 parking spaces. They have to have a 10-foot wide island, which means usually seeded land with trees planted in it. So there's no planting requirement at all for the M1 and M2 businesses. So what, of course, we don't want to require any kind of tree planting in the areas where the big trailer trucks come in and turn around and park and do all that. But we do think that requiring some planting of trees can help, you know, manage the heat of these large parking lots, reduce the cost of stormwater runoff, and also the trees help clean the air, of course, when all the cars and vehicles are coming and going every day. So I have, the tree board passed a resolution that we are requesting. The tree board voted to request that the City of Sweetwater amend the municipal code to remove the exception for staff and visitor areas and general employee parking areas in M1 industrial zoning districts and M2 heavy industrial districts, but not the areas used for tractor trailer and delivery truck parking and turnaround space. So, so the tree board recommendation, which was passed by the board, is that that M1, M2s be treated just like any other business. That was what was passed. That is our request. That there be a minimum of landscape island, a minimum of 10 feet in width, the full length of the parking spaces, every 15 parking spaces in each row. So in discussing this with John Cleveland, it has come up that there's some concern among the planning group about the cost, that this could, you know, that this could be a deterrent to potential M1 and M2 industries wanting to build here. I personally don't think it would, because this is just such a wonderful place to live and grow and build. However, in thinking about all the discussion that the tree board had around this issue, I do think that there's some room for compromise. If you all want to look at something that's a little lesser, less strict than requiring the island for every 15 parking spaces, for example, that we would like to see something done, so that there can't be just huge parking lots with no plantings in them, because that's just not the way to go in this age and time, and not something that we want for our city. And you know, we've got red stag now, and as I come down the hill, I always look over and see how are they doing, how are their trees looking, because they did plant a lot of trees around their first warehouse building. But because they weren't required to, they don't have any plantings around their employee parking lot. It's just a big open parking lot that's paved. So, does anyone have any questions about that? And I could go into an example of how we might modify it, but we would just like your support to look at this and consider passing a modification to the current total exemption. Does anybody have any questions?
One question. I know we're asking for M1 and M2 to be adopted to have tree planting inside the employee parking, but didn't you and John work on reducing that number for this particular setting? Is that?
Yes.
It used to be 100 and now it's 150. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct. So,
So-
I can go ahead and describe that. So the wording that we worked on today, so currently for all businesses, the landscape ordinance says that in parking, they have to have a 10-foot wide island with plantings, including a tree, every 15 parking spaces. And so, the language we talked about today would be to remove the exception for staff, visitor, and other parking lots in M1, M2 district, not areas for tractor trailer or delivery truck parking and turnaround, so that said parking lots are required to have a landscape island with a tree, a minimum of 10 feet in width at both ends of each parking row, and distributed in each row so that no tree is further than 150 feet from another tree in the parking lot. And also, when parking lot consists of more than one row of parking spaces, tree spacing should alternate from row to row, so they're not mixed. So that's the potential compromise that we worked out.
Do you by any chance know, like, I feel like going green and doing these trees is like the going thing that cities and everybody are doing. This is pretty common that across the board people are adding trees and islands into parking lots. So is that what you have found too? Because we're not going to really deter businesses if everywhere you go they have the same regulations.
People want to live in a nice environment. They want to move to a place that is paying attention. And people notice all the trees that we're planting in Sweetwater. They notice that when they come into the city and they see all along Highway 68 are new and growing trees. And it's going to be the same if they see that even the industries here have trees planted. Yes, this is what's happening now and going forward. Yeah. And I got these examples from South Carolina.
It's hatchet
So
money.
definitely. Any other questions?
Pull my phone out while I go at it in my pocket. I've done that several times.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
put that down. Do we want to discuss this or wait till we vote on it maybe Monday night?
So obviously, the tree board's request is to modify the current landscaping ordinance to put some provisions in for M1 and M2. Because right now, the charter, the ordinance we passed says that M1 and M2 are totally exempt from the landscaping ordinance. So if you all do want to add some modifications in that would affect industrial zone properties, M1 and M2, we'd have to pass an ordinance. So first of all, we'd have to draft an ordinance. As far as I know,
Yeah.
I haven't drafted an ordinance.
It's not
Have you?
drafted yet.
So we do kind of need some insight as to what you would be comfortable with putting in that ordinance, and then it'll take 2 readings and a public hearing, just like all ordinances do. So you all kind of tell us your pleasure. We can talk about it more in the next workshop if we want some time to think about it or to look at other examples and maybe pull something together. If you all feel really strongly about a particular point in it, go ahead and tell us. That way we can kind of look that
I
way.
don't have a problem with putting something in there, but to me, every 15 spots is kind of, to me, is overkill. But
It's actually, we actually increased it.
Yeah.
It was every 10,
Yeah.
and we moved it out to 15.
I mean, I can see that being a deterrent.
We
to
could
some
probably give you
businesses.
some idea about what it would have done to Red Stag's lot. We could probably do like an aerial and kind of figure out how many trees that would have meant to them. If that is helpful in some way, we could look at that. Or if,
Well,
because not everybody's going to be on Red Stag's scale either.
Yeah.
So it can be
Yeah.
I will point out this though, the water runoff, I don't want anybody getting the impression that we just have absolutely no regulation in M1 and M2. That's not the case. If you are moving dirt for an area of greater than 1 acre, you have to file a SWIP plan through our planning department, to the state of Tennessee that our planning department verifies. So anytime someone is moving dirt for more than 1 acre, and chances are if they're industrial zone, they're gonna need more than 1 acre, they've probably filed a stormwater wastewater plan with the state of Tennessee. So don't think there's absolutely no regulation at all for wastewater and stormwater, there is. But this is simply saying they're requesting that we add some tree provisions also, that there be some islands in there, you know, with some kind of, and so far, we actually exempted Walmart from this tree landscape ordinance. So you see some islands at Walmart, but that's not actually in compliance with what the ordinance was. We gave them like a variation, I guess. I don't know what we would call it.
I
And
mean,
then And Red Stag, whatever they did was just on their own choosing. They did hire a landscape architect and chose to put those extra trees in. They were not required by us to do that, so.
I mean, once again, guys, y'all know me. I'm one vote. I see the modification and clarification of these trees just going in the parking lot area and increasing the width, so it reduced it, but it still gives some coverage. It still gives some reduction of stormwater. I see this as a good step forward without it being excessive. I would at least like to have it added to an agenda just for moving forward or ending it. But I once again, I think this is beneficial for all the reasons that Jill stated.
So you're saying adding an ordinance to the agenda to modify the landscaping ordinance? Well, actually, I think what it is there's an exclusion at the end of
Right.
the zoning code that says that M1 and
We
M2
need to
are
modify
excluded.
that.
So what we do is modify that to say, but then also, we're not bringing them totally under the landscaping ordinance. We're only saying that parking areas are now part of,
In the
because we want to leave it to where tractor trailers aren't having to deal with the
Yes.
trees. And if
And-
they just went totally under the landscaping ordinance, that would
No.
affect that.
the way it's written, it is employee and office parking.
Okay. Employee and office parking in M1 and M2.
And she said visitor too, or somebody said
Yeah,
visitor
I mean,
parking,
just
right? Visitor?
basically
Visitor
vehicular
too.
versus
Okay.
semi
Yeah. I also agree.
and loading dock areas.
Can we say private passenger vehicle parking? Does that make sense? Does that cover everything? Or should we specifically say employee, office, and visitor parking?
I think that once again, one guy's opinion, if knowing the landscape architects that we work with, if you give them those parameters,
They're gonna get it.
they're gonna get it.
And then are we saying there's a parameter around, do you want trees around that parking lot? Or do you just care about the islands inside that parking lot?
I think-
Cause I don't think right now there's a requirement for them around the parking lot either. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm
I
pretty
think
sure.
Isn't there something about a yard around the edge?
Depending on what adjacencies, typically if that M1 butts up to a residential, then there is a chart and a graph that says what that buffer
Right.
must be. So there
And
are
that's in the
those,
zoning code, not in the landscaping code, right? Or the landscaping ordinance?
that's in landscaping.
It is in landscaping, okay.
Because we basically had to do the same thing for SUB. The thing with SUB in the area that they had, there were existing trees that met that requirement. If it was a blank slate, then we would have had to create that buffer. And I think in times past, even with that buffer, there have been discussions of variance. I think having a beginning in the code, a starting point, is going to be beneficial and not detrimental.
I feel like you know enough between
Yeah,
me
I
and
can
you
grab
and draft an ordinance. Okay, so we'll try and get a proposed ordinance on the April workshop. Or do you wanna have it ready for Monday? Is it
I
just
can,
your week?
I think I can have it ready for Monday.
Okay. We'll try and have a draft of the ordinance ready for April 1st.
Okay, we have one last review for the capital improvement plan. Is there any other items to be discussed on the capital improvement plan? What is that item?
So this is our 5-year capital plan. There's a paper copy in front of you. I'm sorry, it's so small. Maybe one day I'll be smart enough to figure out how to print it bigger. This is basically our 5-year capital plan. We've had this on the agenda for a couple of months. We probably should try and approve it in the April meeting, because then you'll be getting the actual real budget that we'll be trying to put this into. So if anybody has any major changes that's not covered on this is kind of what we use to figure out what goes into the actual budget ordinance. So, I think I've gone over this with pretty much all the department heads at this point, and they all agree this is what they think they'll need. It's not a guarantee, it's kind of a wish list, and we turn this into East Tennessee Development District so they know what kind of grant funding they should be watching for also.
Okay.
And just a little FYI on the fire department's capital plan. If you see there, what is it, 2027? We have down for a replacement truck. That's something we may need to talk about because right now they're 3 years out on any new trucks, and the projected cost is going to be around $600,000 to replace a fire truck when it comes time to do that. Whereas if we look at something and maybe lock in a price now, but not take possession of it for 3 to 4 years, that is a possibility because of the lead time that they have building these trucks.
Is that to replace one or
Yeah,
add
to
another one?
replace.
Replace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would the one that we sell or replace be worth anything? 400,000.
I wish. But I mean, that's just a little information that we need to be aware of when it does come time.
Will that be a used one or a new one?
That would be a new one.
New one. Okay. Anything else on that?
Not unless anybody has anything else to add.
Okay. On the April agenda, we will have minutes and distributions. We will have a public hearing on the handbook. We can pass the handbook if everything is ready by that time. We will also have a report on Main Street and Tourism Departments and open a bid for the Main Street grant. You want to review that grant?
We received $150,000 in grant funding from the state of Tennessee through the Economic Community Development Department for the Main Street District. There will be 3 grants awarded to business owners. A grant committee was set up with people who are not serving or aren't applying for that grant funding. They voted on how to award that. It'll do facade improvements. One of those projects is replacing windows at Sweetwater Antiques. That's on the corner of Main Street and Morris. And that we've actually applied for this grant for them 2 or 3 years in a row, and we finally got it. So that amount will be over $25,000, which is our new bid limit. So we do have to open bids on that. Right now, I've only received 1 bid, and I think the deadline was today. So we have 1 bid to open on that, and we'll review it in that meeting.
Okay.
Also, the other thing about that grant is we got it's $50,000 in grant funds. Our match will be $16,000, so $66,000 to upgrade the green space that we just created. You know, kind of the bare bones green space, but to actually hire a landscape architect to give us a design, to tell us what to plant, where to plant it. We're also going to redo the fountain with that. We're going to give you all a picture of what that's going to look like, so that nobody panics ahead of time. We are not getting rid of the fountain. We're going to raise it up a little bit. We're going to maybe add a topper on it because it used to be a 2-tier fountain, and now it's like a bird bath. And I think there's supposed to be something else that goes on top of it, but we're going to find something to add to it. David and his guys are going to rework the plumbing to where maybe the pump doesn't go out every single year. So that's what we're going to use that grant funding for. And we'll be bringing you a picture. We met with the landscape architecture last week. We have a survey going on down there. So we hope to start construction in July. And have
What
it
about a
finished for
sidewalk
Christmas.
leading? I've had several people want to know why there's not a sidewalk leading to around the fountain like it used to be instead of
That
walking
is
in the
actually
grass.
what the landscape architect recommended. He said we need to have a wide, probably 5 or 6 foot concrete path around the fountain, like in a circle.
Right.
With like a brick seating area that goes in a circle also, just to provide more places for people to sit down there and eat a sandwich. And
What about a couple,
hang out.
benches around there or something?
More benches.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It'd be
Okay,
nice.
thank
And
you.
that way it'll be done just in time for our 150th anniversary.
Get it done for the prom.
I don't think it'll be done before prom. We plan on starting the day after your July 4th celebration.
Okay, MTAS. Recondification.
Oh my lord.
What
Okay,
what
this
is
is
that word?
Recodification.
Yeah.
It means our code book. You're supposed to have it recodified every 10 years. I've been here 18 years and we've never had it recodified, so I don't know how long it's been, but we do an update every 2 years. So all the ordinances that you all have passed, they'll send us an update, and we go through and we put all those ordinances into the code book where it's supposed to be, and we scan a copy and put it on the website for people to see.
Yeah.
What MTAS says is they should actually go through the entire code every 10 years. So we're past due for that. They've given me a quote on what that would cost. and it's based on our city size, and it takes about a year to do it. So they require that we pass a resolution to lock into that price, and then they will put us on the waiting list to do the recodification. So I have already sent the ordinances that we've passed in the last 2 years since our last update. I sent those in last week, so they'll be sending us an update on that in the next 2 or 3 months, hopefully. And then if we pass this ordinance, it means that sometime during 2025, we'll actually go back through the whole code and make sure nothing's been missed in between updates, and that the whole code is like it's supposed to be, start to finish.
So basically, they're auditing our code book.
Kind of, yeah, and they're making sure that everything that we intended to pass actually got put in what became the final code.
What was the price?
$7,300. So I will plan on putting that in the draft of the budget that you all get next week, assuming that we want to tell them, yeah, it's time for you to look through it and update it all. That's kind of a long process. You're going to forget about this before we actually get to the point of having a new code, but you'll have a nice new shiny book to read whenever we get done with it. And more importantly, I'll be able to post one online that people can actually read in one whole document instead of trying to piece together 25 different ordinances that have been passed in the last 2 years.
Recodification.
Recodification.
Remember that.
That's a new word. Jim, have you heard of that before? Recodification. Okay. One other thing here, we will be accepting proposals for engineering for the TAPS for the grant for the sidewalk on north end of Main Street. We will also have capital improvement plans on the first draft of the new budget available. Anything else we need to add to the agenda for next Monday night? Anybody aware of anything? Okay, department head, give us a report.
We had a complaint on YouTube that they couldn't hear the department heads.
Oh,
So I strive to provide an
where is the camera? Oh, right up there. Okay.
Well, I guess I'll start out police department.
I think it's on. Does it say something on that little screen?
It's on.
Now we're on. Here we go. Well, first of all, you know, it's springtime, and police department's been busy. We've been working close with a lot of our other city departments. With the street department, as you can tell when you're getting out and about, we've been working with them on some traffic safety. Of course, the new crosswalk downtown, assisting them with that. They've been busy, and I'm sure David will tell you about a lot of the projects they've been doing. We've been working on some placement of some signs. We're having spring break right now, and the kids are out of school, so we've been working with the fire department on some emergency plans on, you know, just getting in and out of the schools and kind of emergency relief stuff like that. Just basically staying busy.
John Anderson?
Everything's going good. Fire department had a few little calls this week that were a handful, but got them off. Our guys did an exceptional job, and everything's going wonderful.
Have we had an investigation on the fire at TM? It was fire marshal called in or anything for the cause of that?
Well, it was either vandalism or arson. Neither one will be able to prove either one of them. So
Yeah.
it's just a loss.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. David, I know you've been busy.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie pretty much covered us.
Railroad Street.
Yeah, we just got done painting Railroad Street with the help of Trip Hall. He was with a lot of help showing us how to use our new machine and all that stuff. We're hoping to get some hot mix pretty soon, start fixing a lot of potholes around town, and just continue what we're doing. I hope it's showing.
Thank you, David. Sean?
So, going back to what Eddie was saying about working together, his department has banned a few people from parks the last few weeks. So actually, in the last couple of weeks, we've noticed a significant decline in vandalism
Nice.
in bathrooms. So that's a cost savings. Got our new lawnmowers. We're in full mowing season now, so I have 4 really good mowers and 1 PK mower. We're doing good. Yeah. baseball tournament, a couple of baseball tournaments coming up. One in the middle of April. Initially was supposed to be a 2-day baseball tournament using all 6 fields. I think last I heard, probably gonna downsize it to a 1-day tournament using 3 fields. Are they saying 5 now? So I'll probably have a couple of guys working just to keep trash picked up and bathrooms clean and stuff.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Jess, we heard anything out on our trade? Are we going to lease these buildings? We going to rent them? I've had 2 or 3 people wanting to know if they're for rent, the ones that we bought, the utility buildings. What's the board going to? Are we going to be trying to buy that property from Nick, or are we going to trade with him, or how are we working on that?
Nick did say he was interested in discussing a lease swap. Does that make sense? We wouldn't be actually trading the property, we'd be leasing the trade of the 2 properties. And then he asked if y'all were interested at all in just renting him the properties on A Street. He's got some materials he wants to store in there. So I asked him for some provisions about that, and I haven't heard back from him since then. So I think if somebody else is interested and wants to make an offer, it's something we should bring to the board and consider. As far as I know, it's still kind of open and a possibility, but we don't have enough details yet to actually say whether we want to do it or not, because I don't think he's quite determined yet whether he wants to do it as a swap or wants to just ask us to straight out lease the A Street property. So.
Is that Nick Gazana?
No.
Southeastern Distributors.
So what we would need to know, if anybody wanted to rent it, is to bring before the board what the use was going to be and what we would be willing to rent it for. Okay. So we're kind of up in the air till we make a decision on what. How does the board feel about that, swapping or leasing, or how?
I don't like the idea of a lease swap. I don't think the benefit for the city would be near as much as just doing a straight lease for the property. Just my personal opinion.
My biggest concern about those buildings on A Street is what is the use going to be? Because I don't want it to look like a junkyard down there right behind City Hall. And I will say I'm kind of not getting in a rush on this. I'm not really putting that much pressure on him to give us an answer, because we need that property May 3rd and 4th for the festival, because that's where the carnival will set up and where they'll keep their bunkhouses, which will be nice and away from the middle of downtown. So
I think having that green space in the middle of town for multi-use is tremendously beneficial to the city, and that's what I would like to see. Ultimately, is the city ownership of that property. I mean, we can look at leases, but ultimately, that deal hinges, for me personally, is having that piece of property for our use.
The value to you is in
Yes.
us getting the green space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was he interested in an outright sale?
Well, that was initially what the discussion was, and he has since said he doesn't know if he's gonna have the business to justify the outright sale, and he's not totally clear. He's made a contract with the new company, so he's about a month into that, and he's trying to figure out how that's gonna work before he knows whether he needs that space or not. So right this second, he is not interested in selling us the green space. That's why he said, would they consider a lease? And I told him that he could bring some parameters to the table and make a proposal to you all and see what you all say. But I said, I definitely think us leasing out the A Street project is kind of contingent on us being able to obtain the green space from you. Like, that's the value to us, is being able to control that green space.
And I think if anyone wanted to use those buildings and brought a proposal to us, then we could say, look, we have this proposal on the table.
Right.
And, then we can move forward.
I don't think it should stop us.
Yeah.
He's had ample time to give us a
Sure.
response, so I feel like it shouldn't stop us from taking proposals if that's what we're interested in doing. Right now, the buildings are secured, they're insured, they've been inspected. We even had heating and air come in and inspect it. Probably need to do a little cleaning, but other than that, I mean, they're,
I would
you know,
think, yeah,
they're
absolutely.
safe and secure.
It's the old SUB electrical.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought you was talking about. So if somebody else is interested in buying that building, what's the opportunity or no?
It kind of started as a buying conversation. Now it's more like a swap or a trade or a lease. So,
But there's multiple purposes and contingencies behind those buildings. You
well,
know.
and just this week I've had another business owner call that would like to put a business in downtown, but there's nothing available. So I do think our response to the general public should just be, give us a proposal, tell us what you want to do with it, and we'll take it to the board and see what you all decide.
So we own those buildings now, or we're wanting to lease them from the utility board?
No, the city now owns the blue building downtown, the electrical warehouse right behind the depot, and those 3 buildings that they had along A Street. The city bought those with COVID money from the utility board. We closed on it in January.
Sam, are you, everything going good on the blueprints and all that on the?
Yeah, we've started schematic design, and we'll be ready in a couple of weeks to get the engineers involved in looking at mechanical, plumbing, electrical.
Okay. All right.
Anything on TMI?
TMI.
I just talked for the first time with an attorney with the Public Interest Division of the Attorney General's office today, and I would say that he was right up to being extremely enthusiastic about participating and joining in the complaint that we're filing, and I'm sending him a draft of that complaint tomorrow along with the other paperwork, and then it ought to be ready to file within the next, well, it'll depend on the Attorney General's review, but I've got in mind going ahead and filing it and serving them with the papers within the next 2 or 3 weeks if they don't want to join in on our side of the lawsuit.
Nice.
And the next regularly scheduled tax sale for everything else, all of the other delinquent taxes, is February the 6th of 2025, which just confirms the need to go ahead and file this as a separate lawsuit and get it done well before that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, been a good, productive meeting. Thank you for being here. We are adjourned. I need to sign something.
Think about that.